Hello, I'm Craig, and welcome to another episode of Football Kit Memories. Today I meet a broadcast and football journalism legend, Tim Vickery. In our chat, I find out how the youthful gamble he took to move to Brazil paid off, the challenges of working in two languages, and his current thoughts on the future of Lionel Messi. During the show, I asked him to pick out 3 of his favourite football shirts and tell us a little bit about what they mean to him. We talk about the World Cup in Argentina 1978, the classic Hummel Spurs shirt, and the Barcelona Dream Team combo from the Champions League in 1992. You can listen to this and other episodes of Football Kit Memories on all major audio platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Please do subscribe, share, and above all, enjoy the podcast. Okay, so today on the podcast, I'm joined by a football broadcasting legend. It's Mr. Tim Vickery. How are you doing, Tim?
I'm very well. Well aware that lockdown has treated me much better than the majority of humanity. I've got a lovely flat with fantastic views. I've got a park nearby where I can go for my walks. I've got a cafe with open air tables. And that's really been my life now for 11 months. You know, it hasn't really strayed from that.
Well, I wasn't gonna do that thing where a lot of people, when they speak to you on various different outlets that you work with, they ask you, "Oh, what's the weather like in Rio, Tim?" It's hot, right? So
yeah, it's disappointing actually. It's about maybe 28, 29, which frankly, for high summer, we could be doing a lot better. But I never seem to get any sympathy when I make these points.
No, so I guess that's kind of a world away from where you grew up, right?
Yeah, which was Hemel Hempstead, which, there were sunny days. I remember the long, hot summer of 76.
Mm-hmm.
I remember them all, actually. The 75 was good. 76 was a stonker. There were some bad ones after that. But 83 and 84, they were wonderful. 89 and 90 were great. 94 was great. And since then, I've been living endless summer over here. Really?
So you don't miss it then? It's kind of Brazil is home for you?
Well, I do miss it, actually. In fact, the one thing I'm suffering with in lockdown is the inability to get back. It's been, a year and a half now. And that's something that I really, really miss. I've got my mum still living there. I miss my mates over there. And I just miss kind of wandering around London. I do miss it. And no, home is still back there, really. And here it is. Yeah, and I can't. It's a decision that I'm going to have to make at some point. But because I'm married, over here, where I'm going to be later on. But I think for the next 10 years or so, hopefully it's going to heads down, no nonsense, mindless boogie. Let's keep on working. After that we'll see. But I would like to spend more time back there.
Right. How did you end up in Brazil in the first place?
I wanted the experience of living abroad. My old man, he got to 84 without ever getting further than a weekend in Dublin. That was...
Oh, wow.
That's what it was then. It really is. It's what it was. I've just been talking to my brother, and the first time that we went abroad, I was born 65, he was born 66. We were well into our 20s.
Right.
But football had always globalized me. I was one of those kids who I could spell Czechoslovakia at a very early age. A sadly redundant skill these days. But, they got to 2 World Cup finals. How can you not know how to spell Czechoslovakia? So football had always, it had made me aware that there was a big wide world out there that would be nice to explore one of these days. I kind of wanted the experience of living abroad. I was 29, and I think that was the right age to move over. It was the right age for me. You're kind of old enough to deal with it, and there was a lot to deal with, more than I bargained for. But also, you're young enough that if it fails, you've still got time to go back and start something else. It was a little bit by chance. I had a glorious time in my life, which maybe we'll get into, in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, working in the West End of London. I worked in a theatre, bizarrely enough, for someone who has next to no interest, very little interest in it. But it's just where I ended up. And it's such a cosmopolitan part of town, and the bar downstairs in the theatre was full of Brazilians, and I got curious, and I wanted to learn more, and I could see that there might be opportunities. It was one of those crazy naive schemes that you have, when you're that age. Yeah, do it. Everything will work out. But I'm very glad that I did it. It's in many ways it's been the making of me. So it was chance, really. There's never ever been a plan, never.
Right.
Never. But I've just done what I thought felt right, and it felt right to go to Brazil, and it still feels right despite everything. It still feels right to be here.
Yeah. Were you already working in football when you left, or?
No. I'd left college in '87, and together with a group of mates, we set up it was on the Enterprise Allowance Scheme. I don't know if they have that anymore. We set up a magazine.
Right.
It was a comedy magazine, but there was some sport in it. We were in the way that, I don't know if you know Viz.
Yes.
Took the piss out of comics. We were trying to take the piss out of tabloids, really.
Right.
That was our thing, and it was small scale publishing. Is the odds are dead set against you, and we went bust fairly quickly. And I realised that it wasn't something that I was good at or wanted to do. But I was trying, and there was a day. It was when I was at the theatre, when it was a Sunday, when I just had to be there, had nothing to do. But it was just after Graham Taylor had been appointed England manager after the 1990 World Cup, and I wasn't a fan. And it broke my heart. I love that side, and it broke my heart that it was put in front. It was being put in charge of this bloke who wasn't up to the job.
Right.
So I remember buying all the Sundays because I was at the theatre. I just had to be there to take a delivery or something, you know. So I read all the Sundays, and the vast majority, one or two exceptions like dear old Brian Glanville, the vast majority were saying, yes, he's the right man for the job. And I just remember thinking, forgive these people, oh Lord, they know not what they write. I've got to get into this game. One way or another, I've got to get into this game. If honestly, these chief football writers think that this man is qualified for this job, there is something wrong. And in the arrogance of youth, I thought, well, I'm gonna get on my horse and charge and put that right. And how do you do it? I mean, I don't know anyone. I'm a council estate kid from Hemel Hempstead, for Christ's sake. You know, how do you get into it? How do you do it? It's got to be through some kind of route where I've got something to sell that other people haven't, and that ended up being Brazil and South America.
Right, fantastic. So Tim, I think I first came across you a long time ago when I was a young man, and unfortunately that description doesn't really fit me anymore, but it's working on the World Football Phone-In, which is still going on BBC, that you do with Dotun Adebayo. It's got a real kind of cult following, right? How long have you been doing that?
Well, it started at the end of '97 as a 5 or 10 minute slot.
Yeah.
It wasn't a phone-in, 5 or 10 minute slot. And I honestly didn't know that it was like a block. I thought it was a one-off. All right, yeah, we're going to do it on this day. And then the next, it was Sunday when we first started, Sunday nights. And then the next week they phoned back and said, you ready for it again? Oh, what, we're doing it again.
Thanks very much.
And here we are 23 years later.
Wow.
And then it got changed in 2003. It became phone-in. It became interactive. So it had already grown to about 15, 20 minutes, you know, because people were liking it. It was getting a reaction. But I remember them saying, you know, we're going to make it a phone-in. What do you think? And I said, no way. There is no way that it's going to work as a phone-in.
Yeah.
And here we are 18 years later, it's still working as a phone-in. It's a great thing to do. It varies, you know, sometimes it's better than others. It is dependent on callers and chemistry and stuff. But if that's the one thing that you're gonna remember me for, then I'm very, very happy to be remembered for it, because it's that what the way that I see it is like it's a group of mates at a table having a chat.
Yeah.
And but it's inclusive. Come and join us. Come and sit with us and have a chat with us. And for me, it fulfills the great thing about football, which is it's a way of making friends and forging friends across international boundaries, and how we need that these days.
Sure.
So it's something that, and I love the emotional range. I love the fact that we can be as serious as a BBC World Service documentary, and just absolutely frivolous and infantile and stupid within the same 5 minutes. I love that emotional range. So it's something that I'm proud to be part of.
Yeah. Do you know what? I don't think I've ever listened to it live, because it has such a strange time slot, but I've always engaged with the podcast and always listened to that. And now you guys, of course, have spun it off into your own podcast with Dotun as well, the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast.
Yeah, which is great fun to do. And what we do with that is we pick a football game from the past. And we talk about the game, but we also talk about the context, especially what was happening musically at the time. It's a way of putting football in context, and it's a way for me to talk about something other than football, which is great. Because you can spend too much time, and all of us who make a living from it, we are tempted to spend too much time. But also, if you're not putting it in context, it's just a few guys kicking a ball around. The context is always everything. So that shirt, that podcast, Brazilian shirt name, it comes out, I think it's like midnight Wednesday to Thursday. We usually record on a Wednesday. It varies sometimes, but it's one a week that we've been doing. And we love doing it because it's a chance to talk about football. It's a chance to talk about music, clothes, politics, anything that's going on at the time. And it's a chance to Dotton to talk about all his all the loves of his past as well, which he seems to enjoy doing. And believe me, I think there are lots of them.
There's more to come, perhaps.
Yeah.
Do you know? I think one thing that sets you apart, Tim, and one thing that I really like about what you do is that you're always more than kind of capable about talking about football in that wider context that you mentioned. And I think as well, like you're quite brave to kind of share your opinions as well. Like I've heard you on a few different kind of outlets talking about what it's like living under Bolsonaro in Brazil and stuff. What I wanted to ask is, do you ever think, because you're quite forthright in your opinions, do you think it's ever stopped you getting work with certain broadcasters or people?
Well, it cost me my column with the BBC. That's BBC
Wow.
Brazil. Yeah, BBC Brazil. And they said it was for financial reasons, but that was a lie. I mean, I haven't got that many complaints with them. They treated me very, very well. It was a column I did in Portuguese. So this wasn't a sports column. This was more of a cultural column.
Okay.
But I understand their fears because BBC Brazil is foreign-owned media directed to a Brazilian audience, and that puts it legally on quite dodgy grounds. People moan about Russia TV or what it's ever called in the UK. This is the same kind of thing. So they were very, when it became clear that Bolsonaro was going to win, they started censoring some of the columns, and then they got rid of me. So there, and apart from that, no, really, because I think sport, in the way that a lot of things are organised, it's just in its own little bubble. And most people in the sport world, I don't think they really know what or care what I think about anything. Right. apart from is Moses Caicedo going to do well at Brighton?
Well, I guess it depends who you're talking to, right? I do wonder, like, you obviously do a lot of freelance work for different types of outlets, like audio, kind of written stuff, like in different countries too. Do you have to change your style for your audience in different countries?
Yeah. I think that this is a part of journalism. You have to know who you're trying to talk to. I think that's really important. There has to be. The first things I ever did was BBC World Service. Right. And then, I never got any training or anything like that. But just one thing they said to me: remember, you're talking to people who don't necessarily have English as a first language. Okay. So if you're doing it for the BBC World Service, let's just slow down a little bit. Let's iron out any accents as far as you can, and let's go easy on slang. And let's try and communicate with them. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a great piece of information to start with, because I think you kind of apply that to wherever you're going. I mean, the Brazilian shirt name thing, we're going to F and blind all over the place because it's our space and we're allowed to do it.
That's a big surprise for me to hear you drop the F-bomb all the time. Not all the time, but at all.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting angrier. I mean, it's true. I'm just getting angrier with the state of the world. So that kind of comes out. I'm going to have to control that for the benefit of my own mental health, I think. So and obviously working in two languages, I do. Every week I do a 2.5 hour show on Brazilian TV.
Oh, right.
And that's tough. It's 2.5 hours of a morning, and I'm not a great morning person, in a second language. And it's a big audience show. So there are things that you say there that are going to have repercussions.
And is that talking Brazilian football?
Yeah, South American. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it always pisses me off when people say, "Oh, you're there to talk about English football." No, I'm fucking not. No, that always pisses me off. No, I'm there because, rightly or wrongly, they consider me worthy of speaking about their football.
Right.
And that's one of the things I'm very proud of as well, because I've been doing that now for more than 10 years. And I'm taken ludicrously seriously. I'm taken more seriously here than I am in England. And I'm taken more seriously, honestly, I'm taken more seriously than I should be. But but to have achieved that in a second language, that's something I'm proud of as well. And that's, I did it for a long time for free for bureaucratic reasons until I got married. I couldn't get paid,
Right.
but I was happy to do it for free because it always gave me. Firstly, it's a great learning experience. You imagine, you're doing a TV show. It's a presenter. It's you and Carlos Alberto, the captain of the 1970 World Cup side. That's where you're playing. You're playing with the first team. You imagine that.
Wow.
So that's it's a fabulous experience, and it means that when the Wheel of Fortune spun my way, saying the 2014 World Cup, and I was on English TV all the time, and people who didn't know that I do Brazilian TV, well, who's this fella? And sitting in a TV studio with English players.
Yeah,
I've done this in Portuguese with Carlos Alberto. There ain't nothing to fear here, pal. I've done all this. I've done it harder. So great experience.
Nice. So Tim, I was really, really happy that the BBC secured rights to the Copa Libertadores, the latter stages, finished. But I did think that they didn't make enough of it, in my opinion. They didn't, it wasn't easy to watch. I had to find it on the red button and stuff like that. Why do you think that is? And do you think that Cornerball needs to do a bit more to market itself to European audiences?
Well, it's great for Cornerball that it is selling it, and this has never happened before. That they screened the final at the end of 2019.
Yep.
They did the final. They've only just moved to a one-off final at a neutral ground. It used to be finals at home and away.
Yeah.
In the wee small hours in the morning. So the fact that they're now selling it to Europe is they're absolutely delighted with it.
Right.
This time, there was less interest because the winners of the Champions League weren't Liverpool. That was part of the interest in 2019. Whoever won that was likely to face Liverpool in the Club World Cup straight afterwards, which the BBC also have. This year, the BBC did have the Club World Cup, but it was Bayern Munich, not an English team, and so there wasn't quite the interest. But I certainly think they could have done more. And for some reason, the BBC Sport website sacked me just after the 2014 World Cup. It's the one sacking that I'm bitter about. It's the one. Yeah, it's the one because my Twitter following had just gone through the roof.
Right.
And because I've been on TV all the time, during the World Cup, and I've done a column for them for 14 years.
Yeah.
They'd done market research that had said that people wanted more of me. And it wasn't just to get me. The world doesn't revolve around me. They wanted to take the site, I think, in a different direction.
I see.
But I was indicative of what they didn't want. They wanted to move away from that. But I think it's a real shame that the BBC website wasn't knocking at my door saying, can you do articles on it? Because we're showing it on the BBC. I don't really understand it. I live in my own little world. I'm not in touch with anyone. But I'm big-headed enough to think that was a huge mistake on their part.
Well, look, let's hopefully that changes next year, and especially as fans come back as well, because I just think it's an incredible tournament and I love watching it. There's something so, in a world where we've got kind of global football and the Champions League is everywhere, I just think there's something really otherworldly to it, to a European viewer.
Yeah. Well, but it does need to be sold. You do need to explain who the teams are. You can't just put the games on.
Exactly.
You must give it context. Otherwise, otherwise you're wasting your time, I think.
I agree totally. So Tim, I've got one more question about your career before we talk about the 3 football shirts you've chosen to speak about today. As a kind of real exponent of the South American game, both in a kind of positive and negative senses, is there anything that you would take from the British game that they don't have that you think would improve what they have?
Oh, lots. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Lots about organisation of the game. Respect towards the referees, although that's gone down. Respect towards players. I hate the way they turn on their players in Brazil.
Really?
They do it they're less in Argentina, but you've got to have a villain. You must have a villain, and I hate that. That's something that I find deeply depressing. And you might remember, say, the 7-1, the World Cup semi-final. Yeah. They all turned on the centre forward. The entire crowd turned on the centre forward, who I would argue is not perhaps the man you want to be turning on when you just lost 7-1. But there has to be a villain.
So let's move on, Tim. Let's talk about football shirts. The first kind of general question that I ask everybody on the show, what do football shirts mean to you?
I've reached an age, it's been a few years now, that I very, very rarely wear them.
Right.
I've got one on now, actually, which is, I bought this before I moved here in 94. I had a recce in 93. I spent 3 months wandering around, and I bought, this is a Brazil, the blue Brazil shirt. Yeah. From that age, that era. I really love the collar. Yes. I like collars, you know. I've had phases when I've just been fascinated with football shirts. Absolutely fascinated. I've reached an age where I very, very rarely wear them.
Right.
Because you'll find this, how old are you, Craig?
I'm 34.
Right. Yeah, I'm 55. So
you're looking well.
You're still cool, but there'll come a time when you'll think, you know what? I don't really look my best in a football shirt. You know, there's a reason that suits are so durable, and you find that out as you get older. You know, because as you get older, there is nothing that makes you look as good as a well-fitting suit. Right. It hides your defects and it just makes you look classy. And you know, when you're 34 or something, you can slob around in a football shirt and a pair of jeans. And when you get to my age, it doesn't look as good. Right. So had football shirts been more available when I was a kid, I would have had so many. It's where my paper round money would have gone, I think. A lot of it would have gone on football shirts. Thankfully, I think you couldn't buy them back then. You know, they were hard to buy. But I like seeing them in the streets. I don't like all of the sponsoring stuff that's on them. It takes something away.
Especially when you are in Brazil.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. And people really, because for the Club World Cup that Palmeiras were playing in, they couldn't have the whole lot on.
Oh right, interesting.
Because you know, so they only had like the main one, and people were saying, "Wow, doesn't it look nice? It's so much cleaner, so much more streamlined." So I still kind of, even though I rarely wear them, there's one or two that I still wear. I still see them as kind of magical objects.
Yeah. Very much so. I'm the same, Tim. So talking about a magical object, I think you've picked an incredible shirt for your first choice here. So we've got the Argentina, it's a home shirt by Adidas for the World Cup there in Argentina in 1978 too. Talk to me about this one. He's got it.
Yeah, there it is. Now, that's the story, and I shall tell you the story.
Wow.
I just turned 13 for that World Cup, and I loved it with a passion that you only can when you just turned 13. You know, there was nothing else in the world apart from the World Cup. A few months afterwards, the Jam released Down in a Tube Station at Midnight, and it opened up my mind. Hang on, there are other things in the world apart from football and so on. But but the 78 World Cup, you know, 74, I lived and kicked every ball. It's the first one I remember. I just turned 9. But, you know, to be 13, everything. I would do school projects about it, everything. I collected as many of the Sabutio teams as I could.
Right.
And I vividly remember the day of the final. The final, I think, was a Sunday, playing out in the park. And on the day, and the finals to come later on, and feeling sad that, you know, this is going to be all over. I haven't thought about anything else for ages now, and it's going to be all over. And I remember saying to me, mate, whoever wins, I'm going to buy the shirt.
Right.
Holland or Argentina, I'm going to buy the shirt. It was like a thought that I had of, you know, it's almost like a funeral. You know, that's the way that I've kind of had some closure to the tournament. Yeah. And then obviously I'm desperate for Argentina to win because I've got a love-hate relationship with orange. You know, sometimes it looks all right, but that orange that the Dutch wore was horrible, kind of dull orange, you know, not a good orange. So, you know, I became desperate for Argentina to win. Now, obviously, I wasn't going to buy the shirt for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm not sure the paper round money would have stretched that far, but also you just couldn't buy them. You know, they weren't commercially available. You know, people didn't buy the shirts. It didn't happen. It started happening in the 80s, really, that people bought the shirts. But 78, no chance of buying a buying and I tried to buy a few years earlier. I tried to buy a Brazil shirt because I was obsessed with the '70 World Cup. We were reading about the '70 World Cup,
Right.
And the closest I could come was getting a yellow shirt and just putting a sticker on it, and that would have to do. The real one, no way. So it's a few years ago now. There's the sports paper over here. It used to do this thing where it used to. You could buy at cut down prices like vintage shirts. Yeah. You had to buy the paper for like 3 weeks or something like that, and cut out a sticker every day and then put it in your little book. And my stepdaughters were they thought this was hysterical, doing this, cutting out my stickers so I could get a shirt. They did Brazil '82, which I've got.
Nice.
And they did Italy '68, which I've got and I love. It's the one that I still wear because it just looks great. Italy '68. It's
European tournament, that one then. 68.
Yeah, they won it. They were at home, and it was the very last one. Was Argentina '78? Okay, so there it is. So I finally managed to achieve the objective and get the shirt, but it came just at that moment when, as I was saying, I thought, I don't really look my best in this anymore, with the exception of the Italy one, which for some reason, because it's so clean, it's. I think I look all right in this. So the Argentina '78 one, I've hardly ever worn it.
Right.
It got most use during the last World Cup when I had my own wall chart.
Right.
Up behind my camera position that I was using, I had shirts of Brazil, Argentina, Peru, and Uruguay. Right. I didn't have Colombia's because I don't have a Colombia shirt, and I'd have them up. I had an England one as well, and I would every time one of those nations was eliminated from the competition, the shirt was ceremonially taken down. So nice. on my Instagram, which is just a ludicrous vanity parade, really, there is a photo of me ceremoniously taking down the Argentina '78 shirt when France knock them out of the World Cup.
Very nice. So. Your next choice, Tim, is the Tottenham home shirt by Hummel. It's from the '89 to '90 season. How come you pick this?
Yes, because I was telling you earlier on, I set up this magazine and we failed. And then I was just absolutely broke. I was just derelict. I was happened to me when I come over here in Brazil as well, which was more serious because my mum was just down the road, but you're too proud to do it. Yeah. So I'm just on friends' settees and purely by chance I got this job at the theatre, and and suddenly you didn't get paid very much, but cash, money, and the first wage packet I got. One of the things I bought, it had just come out, was this new Tottenham shirt for the new season.
Very nice. Which
was '89-90. And I associate it with the gorgeous summer. And Chrissy Waddle had just gone, unfortunately.
Right.
But we just bought Lineker.
Yep.
And we had Gascoigne. And I love that shirt. It's very sleek. Mm-hmm. I haven't got it any longer. It's very sleek. It's very pure, and that the crest is just where the collar bar meets. There's a crest there, and I really like that detail. And I love that shirt, and it symbolises for me a happy time when, firstly, I stopped being derelict. I started having a job and having just a little bit of money to get by. But also, that team, I associate that team with the '90 World Cup.
Right.
Which it was a terrible World Cup, really, unless you're an England supporter, in which case it was a fabulous adventure. It was a wonderful adventure. And it was kind of our team in a way because of Chrissy Wadd and Gascoigne and Lineker, and especially kind of Gascoigne because at that time there was still very little live football on TV, very little. Mm-hmm. So going into the World Cup, lots of people weren't too sure about Gascoigne.
Really?
Lots of people around the country. Yeah, I remember Kenny Dalglish before England's first game. And admittedly, Kenny Dalglish is Scottish, but before the first game, when they're like picking the team, what's the England team going to be for the first game? And saying, Gascoigne and Dalglish saying, no, I prefer Stevie McMahon in there.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe that's mind games from Kenny. You never know.
Well, I don't know, but there were lots of people who thought that because Gascoigne, he was an infuriating figure, and he had spent a lot of time out injured. Mm-hmm. but he was an absolute genius, and he just hit it. He came back kind of 2 or 3 months before the end of the season. So this is like March, say, 1990.
Yeah.
I think he'd just been out, he'd broken a wrist or something like that, like flailing an arm out at a player, right. And he came back, and he was just out of this world. He was out of this world. There's one performance I remember towards the end of that season. It was against Man United at home. And we were thinking there, you know what? I think we're watching the best player in the world.
Yeah.
But it was like our little secret. The rest of the country didn't really know, because you weren't really seeing that much of it on TV. In fact, Diego Maradona said after that World Cup, he is my heir as the best player and as the best player in the world. So I associate that shirt. I've got so many happy memories of that shirt, of improving my own personal circumstances, of a football team that I really liked. And it is the team that go through that mad adventure to win the FA Cup in 1991. Now, they changed shirt for the final.
Yeah.
They brought in another shirt, which was nice as well, with a kind of big collar. I like collars.
Yeah.
But up until then, up until the game before that, it was still this shirt. You wore the shirt for 2 years then.
Yes.
It was the shirt that they were wearing when they beat the Arsenal 3-1 at Wembley in the semi-final. So it's a shirt that's got really happy memories for me of a time when I was getting back on my feet, and at a time when maybe the England team were getting back on their feet. And I don't think without that World Cup, without the success of that World Cup, I think the Premier League would have been much harder.
Do you? Is it difficult for you to support Tottenham from the distance you are away from?
I'm a terrible supporter anyway. I mean, I've always liked the game more than the team.
Right.
And I don't like. I have huge respect for Jose and everything he's achieved, but he's not us.
Right.
I was moaning about it, on the radio when we were top of the league and we just beaten Arsenal. It's so this isn't. It's not results-based thing. I just don't think he's. I don't like the fit. So, and it's been. I haven't been back for a year and a half, and the last time, my wife runs half marathons, so I took her over for a half marathon,
right.
And it was the day after or the day before. I can't remember. It was afterwards. The last Saturday. It would have been my first chance to see the new stadium.
Right.
But I thought, no, it's her last Saturday. I can't take her to go and see Tottenham versus Watford. I just can't. I can't do it to her. I can't do it to her. So I haven't been there for a while. There was a time when I was going back more frequently, and you go back to the lane, you'd feel the songs and and so on. But at the moment, I feel very distant. It's a different stadium, it's a different coach, it's a different team, it's a different ethos. So I feel a long way away from it at the moment.
Right. Do you have a team that you kind of support in Brazil?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't understand that. I have individual players, because that's the best thing about what I do.
Yeah.
You see individual players on the way up and you think, I'm going to follow him. But no, I don't really understand where that sentiment can come from, really.
Right. Has there ever been a player out there that you've followed and enjoyed watching and thinking this guy's going to come to Europe and do really big things, and for whatever reason it just didn't happen?
Oh, God, yeah, loads. I mean, loads, more than I can ever mention. And often injuries happen. Right. Loads. I mean, and also there's the distance between promise and reality. It's such a crooked road. There are so many things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, well, no, he's a coach now. A fellow from Ecuador called Franklin Salas. And I thought he was going to be. And he was fantastic for a couple of years, and then he got injured, and he was never ever anywhere near the same thing ever again. And that happens so often. It's the thing that's always in the back of my mind when people moan at them for being greedy, for asking for too much money. This thing could end next week.
Yeah, you could break your leg.
Imagine that if you're a speed player. And you suffer a little injury, and that takes away that vital, as happened, we'll say, with Andros Townsend, who looked like at one point he really could be something, and is now just all right, because his game was based on that acceleration. You take a little bit of that away, and he will never be the same player. So it's a very insecure way to make a living. And one of the nice things about footballers, I think, is that they realise this. Because they all know people who were better than them when they were growing up. who for whatever reason didn't make it. You know, whether it was luck or whether it was lack of focus or something. You know, so that's something that I think humanises footballers.
Yeah. Do you know, I think we hold them to such different standards sometimes. You know, somebody said that they were going to double my wages to do the same job. I'm going to take that job, right? So why shouldn't a footballer do the same thing?
Yep.
So, Tim, your final choice is the Barcelona. It's the 1992. Is it the home shirt or the away shirt you want to talk about, or both?
Yeah, well, I want to talk about really the home shirt.
You got that one too. Look at this.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah. This is a retro one from '79, which is like 3 years earlier when they won the Cup winners in '79. Right. It's a huge moment for me, and I think it's a huge moment for the Premier League as well. Barcelona winning the European Cup as a Champions League was.
Yeah.
For the first time at Wembley in '92. Now, I'd been to Barcelona. It was the first foreign city I ever saw. Started 1990.
Okay.
And I fell in love with the place. I've never been back since, much to my own regret. I'd love to. And everything was being prepared for the Olympics then. So I'm told it's much, much better now. But I thought it was great. And the people treated me very nicely. They kept on saying I looked like one of them. I think it's the big nose. So I felt an affinity. And there was affinity with Tottenham anyway. Venables had been there and Lineker and Naeem, who we had. So I was at that game at Wembley in '92 against Sampdoria, and Sampdoria were the glamour side actually. They had Vialli and Mancini up front, who were a great combination.
Yeah,
they had Cerezo in midfield, who were truly great, Brazilian central midfielder, and Serie A. At that time in England was better known really because it was on Channel 4. So they were kind of the glamour side. And London, just for a few days, it's end of May, it just turns into the Mediterranean. It was beautifully hot. And it was, I love, if London was like that all the time, I'd never, ever have left. I just had everything that I wanted in those few days. And it was a great game. It's a really great game, which unfortunately looked like it was going to go 0-0 on penalties. And then with the last kick of the game, really, Ronald Koeman scores with a free kick.
Of course, yeah.
But it was a great game, and it introduced an English TV audience to a more cerebral type game.
Right.
But a very entertaining one. And you look at it now, and it kind of sets the template for what the best games in the Premier League have become.
Yeah.
Now, you could imagine that being a kind of City against Chelsea type game and it's there's such joy around that game for me. I went to the game with a Barcelona scarf that I bought when I was there a couple of years earlier,
right?
And after the game, I've told this story many times, so please fast forward if you've heard it. Went back into the West End to a Spanish bar on Old Compton Street,
right,
for a few celebratory drinks, and there's this fella there. He's out with his girlfriend. And I can see that he wants to talk football.
Okay.
So he's kind of edging my way. And he comes up and he says, in kind of halting, he says, "I'm really glad you won." And I kind of nod, playing him along. Yeah. And he says, "I support West Ham. Have you heard of West Ham?" And I say, "Yeah, mate, I'm a Tottenham fan." And he's so surprised he falls on the floor. And people around are laughing. And it just kind of, it was a great, great night. But one of the things that I really remember for that night that I thought was great was Barcelona they played that game in the chain shirt, which was, again, not a very nice orange.
Yes, very garish.
Yeah, it was garish. Final whistle, they've won. What do they do to collect the cup? Change.
Get it on.
Get into the proper shirts to go and collect the cup. And I thought that was so classy.
Yeah.
I thought, right, these are the colours that we represent in this greatest moment of the club's history. Yeah. We are going to be true to those colours and not go up in this shirt, in this chain shirt, because who we are is this. So I thought that was great. That was had they not done that, for me it would have knocked some of the value off the moment. The moment would not have been perfect. As it is, it's absolutely perfect. It's one of those moments I want to inhabit. When I'm trying to get off to sleep and like dreaming of nice little moments. That was a great moment. That night was great. Can we have that night again, please?
Very nice. Okay, it's crazy to think that that's their first European Cup, right?
Yeah.
How many they've won now?
Yes. Which tells you the importance of one Lionel Messi to them, because he didn't play in the final against the Arsenal in 2006. But he played during the campaign.
Yeah.
He joins a club that has won Champions League, and he's put them up there with, which makes it sad to see what they've become over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Do you ever feel that Messi might play in South America?
Well, he used to talk more about Newell's Old Boys, where he started in Rosario. That's becoming, with every breath, I think that's becoming less likely. Because if he does move now, I would imagine Paris Saint-Germain. I think PSG getting Pochettino in was, basically rolling a red carpet out. So if he doesn't stay, I think he'll go to PSG. But now he's talking of a kind of late career adventure, perhaps in the United States, which would make sense. The pressure would be off a little bit. He could enjoy it. It'd be easier for his family, maybe.
Yeah.
So I think the idea of going back Newell's Old Boys, it's one of those things that is perhaps a better romantic idea in theory than it would be in practice.
Right.
So no, but it's a high point in my career. 2005 in Colombia, South American Under-20 Championships. Argentina have heard about him.
Right.
They know that Spain wants him. So they pick him without knowing much about him.
Right, okay.
Don't give him the number 10 shirt. He's only 17 and he's tiny anyway. So you imagine how much smaller he is than the other players. And I was there for that. He played one friendly for Barcelona. So no one really knew anything about him.
Yeah.
And as soon as he got on the ball, wow.
Yeah.
Christ, we all knew that we were in the presence of something very, very special. Now, I've been in at the start of lots, but there's nothing for me that matches being in at the start of Messi. So even if he doesn't play club football in South America, doesn't come back, I've seen him over here, and over here really, in a way, it's where it started. Because a few months later, he's playing for Argentina in the Under-20 World Cup in Holland. They win that one, and after that, he's starting to get regular games with and he plays for Argentina a couple of months at senior level, a couple of months after that. So that tournament, kind of February 2005, that was 16 years ago now. That was the start of so much, and I was lucky enough to be there. Not just luck, because I paid my own airfare and hotels. So it wasn't just luck; it was hard work, but it was great to be there.
Yeah, you knew where to go. You knew where to sit. Fantastic. Well, Tim, look, thank you so much for those choices, and thanks so much for talking to me. Everybody should listen out for the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast. Is there any other stuff that they should find you on at all?
Well, I do the World Football Phone-In every week of a Monday night to Tuesday morning, which is also available as a podcast. If you follow my Twitter feed, Tim_Vickery, I think that's the one, then most of what I write gets posted on there, with the exception really of World Soccer Magazine, because that's a magazine. And World Soccer Magazine is one of my first clients from right at the start of 1997. Wow. It's a joy to write for. You're writing for people who are really into it.
It's a great
that's so to have been part of that, of the story of that magazine for so long is something else I'm very proud of.
So there you have it. A massive thanks to Tim for sharing his football kit memories with me. You can follow me in my own collection on Instagram, or get in touch via Twitter or email. Make sure you follow Tim and check out the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast too. It really is a great listen. And other than that, I guess that's it. Until next time, I'll see you later.